Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Hope you guys are all doing really well. Now, as you can tell by the title of today's video, I will be sharing with you the pros and cons of working at a Big Four or an accounting/consultancy firm. Now, as you guys all know, I have had a few years experience working at Kpmg, which is one of the Big Four accounting firms in the world. And I just wanted to share with you my experience and what I thought about working at Kpmg. So I'm just going to talk briefly about some of the pros and some of the cons. Mainly pros because honestly, there's not many cons. So I'll take you through all of the advantages of, having worked at a Big Four and where that can ultimately take you. So if you guys are interested, then please keep watching. And if you haven't already, then please do subscribe to my channel down below. And let's just get started on this video. So starting off, I just want to give you guys a little bit of information as to what I did at the Big Four, specifically Kpmg. So I was at Kpmg from 2017 to 2019. So I was there for about 2.5 years. I started off as a graduate within the internal audit or risk consulting space. And I was specifically in the financial services division within the sort of risk assurance space. So what that meant was a lot of my clients were financial institutions, credit unions, superannuation, insurance, etc., etc. So based off of that experience, I want to share with you some of the pros working at Kpmg. Now, the first pro of working at a Big Four accounting firm is that you have endless opportunities to work on different clients. You get an extreme amount of exposure to different industries, different clients, all within a short period of time. So obviously during my time there, I had a chance not only to work with the financial services team, but I was also working in government, corporates, healthcare, and it really just gave me a good insight into what industry looks like, because I know a lot of you people, you're usually straight out of uni, you get a grad position, and then you want to know what your prospects are like when you do come out of the Big Four and whether you can, actually fit in well with the industry and you can actually perform the work that's required in the industry. So working at a Big Four really allows you to understand, because you're obviously visiting different clients every time, different projects. So you get a little bit of a sneak peek into what that client does, what the industry does as a whole, and whether you can actually see yourself working there down the track. So I think that's really valuable, having that sort of experience, having that sort of insight and knowledge into seeing how other organizations work as well, in case you do want to sort of take up an opportunity later down the track. So yeah, that's one of the pros of working at a Big Four, just the endless opportunity, different clients, different people, different projects. There's always something happening and it's always very much dynamic. So you're never really doing the same thing over and over again. Now, the second advantage I want to mention is that say you're starting off as a graduate, you've done your graduate program for a year or whatever it is, and then you obviously move on to becoming a consultant. And then just to take you through a little bit about what the tiers are. So it's consultant, senior consultant, manager. There's not really assistant manager where I worked, but after manager, you'll be associate director, and then partner. So back to what I was telling you. Basically, if you're a consultant, you get a lot of opportunity to sort of step up and prove yourself as a senior consultant. There's so many opportunities where you can get to sort of act in the role of a senior con, perform their duties, all while you're a consultant. There's definitely a lot of opportunities that, they provide for you to sort of, to step out of your comfort zone, to try something different, get thrown into the deep end, because I think their sort of way of learning is, chuck them in the deep end and they'll just learn to sort of swim or drown or whatever it is. And also just wanted to mention that my division that I was working in was comparatively smaller than, for example, audit or external audit, depending on what you call it. My division was definitely a lot smaller. So on the engagements or the projects that we used to work on were very small. It used to just be a consultant, sometimes not even a senior consultant, and just a manager and a director and the partner, obviously. So it would just be, if there's no senior consultant, then the consultant would have to step up and perform those duties. And obviously if you didn't want to and you weren't comfortable, then obviously if you're a first year grad and you're really not comfortable, then they won't obviously force you, but they will push you if they feel like you are ready and you need to move on and transition onto the next sort of role. So I think there are a lot of opportunities with sort of progressing quickly as well. I feel like there's a lot more of a quicker progression path working at the Big Four compared to where I work now at a bank, for example. So because I'm a manager at the moment, so for me to become a senior manager would essentially have to mean that someone who's a senior manager either gets promoted or they leave their position. Only then will that sort of slot become available for me. So in terms of the Big Four, there's always, people coming in, always people leaving. So there is a higher chance for you to move up quickly up the corporate ladder as compared to working in the industry, because people usually stay in those roles for 10, 15, 20 years, especially if you are a boomer. No offense if you are, but you guys generally tend to stay pretty long in your jobs just because that's the way that you've been brought up, or that's what the culture was like back then, and it's all about stability. So for that reason, it's really hard to sort of progress, or it's not hard, it just takes longer because you can't really sort of see yourself in that position properly, or you can't even be acting in that position usually, because obviously the senior manager is there to do that. So whereas at a Big Four, there's always opportunity. People are always encouraged to step up and step out of their comfort zone. So I think that's definitely a plus point in terms of your learning, in terms of your sort of career prospects as well. You're just getting to that higher role quicker, which I think is really good. It saves you time and you're sort of ahead of the game as well. Now, the third advantage, or the third pro that I want to mention, is the secondment opportunities. Now, I want to say that this is by far the biggest sort of benefit that you can get working at a Big Four, because I did a secondment opportunity and I landed my job at a bank where I'm working now. Because the Big Four are professional services firms, they perform work for their clients. For example, say a big bank is the client of one of the Big Four accounting firms, then you may be seconded out to help one of the banks, or it could be any other organization. But I was seconded to a bank, one of the Big Four banks in Australia, and I was seconded out there for about 3 to 4 months, and I was performing the work of a manager at the bank, and I was sort of involved in all of the day-to-day activities, duties, and actually part of the team. So I essentially become an employee for that bank, and I'm working like a normal employee, and I had really, really good insight into what those day-to-day activities, what the work involved, and what it was actually like to be a risk manager at this bank. So because of Kpmg, I would obviously not have had this opportunity to be able to understand and gain this insight if it weren't for obviously Kpmg having that secondment and sending a few people out. And I can tell you already, a few people also did sort of jump ship as well. It's definitely a great opportunity, because obviously these big firms are reputable, because other organizations are always requiring resources. So they obviously first reach to the Big Four to provide those resources, because there may be a resource deficiency, too much work has sort of popped up and they need someone to really help in that area. So there's no one better than the Big Four, because obviously the people there are considered to be trained and very well qualified, and apparently they know what they're doing. Secondments, I think, is a big thing for me. It definitely landed my industry job. So having that experience, having that sort of intel into what it's like to work in the industry definitely is a plus point, and you would not get these opportunities elsewhere, I think, or to this standard. So yeah, definitely secondment opportunities are amazing. Now, another pro of working at the Big Four, I have to say, is the type or the quality of people that you're surrounded with. Now, obviously, as you all know, it's tough to enter, tough to sort of get into the Big Four, especially through their graduate programs. There's thousands of applications that come through, and only the top people sort of get selected. And because of that reason, you are surrounded by like-minded, ambitious, very career-driven people who are always sort of looking to succeed and progress in their career or life. And that in itself is such an amazing feeling, because everyone around you is super successful, super driven, and there's obviously that quote, you are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. So I think coming to work every day, you always know that you'll be switched on, everyone's on their toes, and they're alert, intelligent, knowledgeable people, and that would really sort of help you improve yourself as a person as well. So yeah, I definitely think that's very important to surround yourself with quality people. No offense if that sounds a bit rude, but that's essentially what it is. Like, those people have been handpicked to perform their duties. Obviously, a few of them don't fulfill those duties and they get booted out, but the majority of them are super intelligent and very, very career driven, and that will obviously rub off on you as well. So I think having the opportunity to work with some intelligent people is definitely a plus point, because you're not only learning, but you're sort of bettering yourself as well in terms of self-development. So I think it's definitely a really good environment, and definitely a competitive environment, if I didn't mention that. Now, the next pro I would like to mention is the travel opportunities. These travel opportunities were endless, like honestly endless. Now, obviously, given we've got COVID and we're under, we're in a pandemic, obviously these have been somewhat limited because people are now working from home. But when I was there, it was like proper like travel. So you would be traveling, either regional cities, some people even went overseas as well. If you love traveling, then definitely working at a Big Four is something that you want to look into, because it's not only fun traveling, but you also get to explore the country, you get to explore places as well. And I think it's sort of a win-win situation. So if you love traveling and you're in the sort of risk consulting, audit, I definitely know there's a lot of travel. I think there's a lot more travel in the audit field, because I think they are more sort of required to go to the clients. There was a fair bit of travel in my division as well, but obviously not as much as audit. But yeah, if you love traveling, then I would highly suggest applying as well, because given COVID, things have sort of resumed back to normal in Australia somewhat. I'm still working from home, but I know a lot of organizations have sort of returned to work, so they are attending clients. Like my brother, he works as well at one of the Big Four, and he is at the client at the moment. So I know a lot of people are traveling at the moment. So yeah, if you love travel, then I would highly recommend that as well. Now, the next pro I want to mention is the ability to land another job. I feel like if you work at a Big Four, you have sort of endless opportunities to land another job, be it at another Big Four or within the industry. There's always this sort of unspoken rule where, if you work at a Big Four, you're just always automatically sort of above the bunch of people who haven't actually worked at a Big Four. You will always be highly regarded, just because there is that built up reputation if you've worked at a Big Four. So especially for me as well, obviously, I had that secondment opportunity, and then I was recruited because they thought that I was a Kpmg employee, so I must be really, really good at what I do. And that was one of the reasons why I got hired. So I know there's a lot of people that, they work at the Big Four, they do their time, they get all their study and qualifications completed, and then they switch over because they know that the pay is higher. They know that, there's more sort of work-life balance as well, but I'll touch on that a little bit down, in the cons. But yeah, the ability to land a job is a little bit more possible if you have worked at a Big Four, because as I said, it's considered to be trustworthy, reputable, and it's sort of a multinational firm. So it's just one of those things that if you've got on your resume, you'll be ranked higher than other people that don't have that on their CV. But I just also want to mention, to not take everything that I say literally. Take it obviously with a grain of salt and make your decisions, and make sure that they're informed and backed by research conducted by yourself. So yeah, that was definitely one thing that I saw, that you have the ability to land another job. Now, the last pro that I could think of is that you've got the opportunity to complete your postgraduate studies. That could be your CA, CPA, your certificate of internal auditors, or anything that's sort of in line with the work you do. I know when I was working at Kpmg, I had a sort of a lump sum payment sort of assigned to me, and I think it's assigned to pretty much all employees, and you're able to go out and take up a course. And I know obviously if you're in the audit field, then you need to do the CA or CPA or whatever it is that's required, and you can't really do something else. But if you're in sort of risk consulting, then you do have that flexibility. Having that sort of flexibility, that option to actually complete a postgraduate sort of degree, I think is amazing, because obviously we all know degrees, postgraduate study is very expensive. So having the firm pay for it is amazing. But there are a few rules obviously involved with that as well. After completing the CA or CPA, you are sort of required to stay within that firm for a year. Otherwise, if you leave, then you need to pay back the cost of the courses that you've completed. But I think, yeah, having that sort of option to complete your postgraduate studies while working is definitely a plus point. And I know a lot of my viewers are, you know, international and are really keen on, you know, completing some postgraduate degree. So if you are thinking about, you know, it's going to be expensive or whatnot, then have a look at applying at the Big Four. And if you are working at the Big Four, then you should know that you are able to take up that course. But I do know that a lot of divisions do offer it because it is required for the role. So yeah, those are a few of the pros or the advantages of working at the Big Four. Now I'm going to delve into the cons, even though I feel like you shouldn't take these cons too seriously, because in the grander or bigger scheme of things, I think you're essentially setting yourself up for success, and I think the pros definitely outweigh the cons. But nonetheless, I'll talk about the cons as well. So as we all know, the pay is obviously lower than industry. Now, this is pretty much well known everywhere that the pay is significantly lower, and we all just need to accept that. The amount of sort of reputation, the amount of weight that name is going to put on your CV is so much better in the grander scheme of things. I know that the pay will be shorter in the short term. If you do decide to leave, like I did 2.5, 3 years later, then, you know, your salary can obviously double, potentially triple if you're amazing. So yeah, we all know the pay is lower. It's super competitive to get into, and obviously the firms aren't going to increase their pay because they know how high the turnover is for these positions working at the Big Four. So I think this is something that you need to accept and really have your budgeting, you know, on point as well, just to make sure you are on top of your expenses. But yeah, definitely the pay is lower. So have a look into Glassdoor or Reddit or whatever it is that you look into to see if you will be comfortable living on that salary. I know that they talk about, you know, a few of the roles and what the expected pay is. So have a look into that and make your decision based on that. Now the second con I would have to say is the long hours. You guys obviously know within the risk consulting or internal audit division, and based off of my experience, I never really worked long hours. I was literally 9 to 5, if not 6. The hours were pretty comfortable for me. I know within the audit or financial service audit sort of divisions, long hours, like definitely long hours. Sometimes you're working until midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., especially if it's like year end or busy season. Be mindful of that. I mean, you definitely know what you're getting yourself into. And if you're someone like me that is really concerned about work-life balance, then I wouldn't suggest doing that, because your work-life balance is going to be compromised. But also I just want to mention that it's not always that you're going to be working those long hours. I would say maybe 50%, 60, 70% of the time. So just be mindful of that and really know what you're getting yourself into. But yeah, everyone knows the Big Four for having, you know, long hours and no work-life balance. But I know a lot of people who are managing it and are managing it well. They're here on YouTube as well. The third thing could be traveling too much. If you don't like living out of a suitcase, then it can get really boring and really hard at times as well. But now, given COVID, I mean, things have really changed up. A lot of people are working from home because essentially it's so flexible now that you can do whatever you like. If you're not comfortable going with a client, I don't think they will force you to go. So another con that I want to mention is that you may become a workaholic. Just because you're surrounded with people who love their job, who love working and are super motivated to get the project or get the work done, you are bound to be like them as well. You're going to have to put in the extra hours. You're going to have to, you know, perform at your best. You're going to have to like fight for your say or your position or whatever it is and fight to be recognized. So I think you do become a little bit of a workaholic, but that's completely up to you and how you sort of take that. And the final con that I want to mention is that you need to work harder to get recognized. I know I touched on this a little bit before, but you definitely need to sort of step it up a lot. You almost need to be a teacher's pet. This is my experience and what I've really noticed. And you need to be in the face of your managers, senior managers, partners to really get recognized and essentially be put on projects that you want to be working on. So yeah, it's definitely super competitive, and you need to be mindful of that if you're not one to, you know, go above and beyond to do something, then this may not be for you. But just be mindful that there will be others around you who would be sort of, you know, pulling each other down and, you know, trying to get up that corporate ladder. And I know a lot of environments where it has sort of come across as, you know, that bitchy behavior, that really unfair and that super competitive behavior. Like, you guys all know what I mean. I mean, there's a lot of TV shows that talk about it, but somewhat of that is true. But it's generally up to you, you know, how you deal with it. But yeah, those are essentially the pros and cons of working at a Big Four. Definitely have to say the pros outweigh the cons, just because of the opportunities and all of the self-development exposure that you get working at a Big Four. I feel like you can't really get that anywhere else. Once you leave a Big Four, obviously your career progression slows down a little bit, but if you are able to sort of gain all the experience, gain all the knowledge, gain all the insight while you are working at the Big Four, and then you jump ship into something that's possibly 1 or 2 roles above your current job, then I think that's rewarding in itself, and you've done your bit and at the end of the day. So yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed that. Let me know what other videos you would like to see. As you guys know, I've rebranded the channel. I've done a few changes. So let me know what type of content you would like to see. I'll be more than happy to film that for you guys. But yeah, hope you found this useful, helpful. Any questions, emails, you can definitely email me at successbysanjna@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to respond to you there. But other than that, I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Thanks, guys.